Hello everyone, BFF back. Today we are going to be hearing from our Acting Chief of Security, John. He is going to be talking about all things that have to do with server security. I'm now going to hand it over to John.
Hey there. As BFF said, my name is John, and I am currently the Acting Chief Safety Officer here at AYS. That means that it's my job to oversee the moderation teams as well as the general safety aspect of the network. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about how to keep your Discord server safe, how to moderate your server properly, as well as how to set up some of the most popular Discord moderation bots. But before we get started, if you have any questions at all, feel free to comment below and we'll be glad to reply. Alright, the first thing we're going to be talking about is the general safety aspect of your Discord server. At first, this might seem a bit vague, and in all honesty, it's a very wide topic, so I'm going to try to explain everything in this video without taking up too much of your time. First off, let's ask the question, what exactly keeps your Discord server safe? Again, this is a pretty wide topic, but the main points here are, firstly, have your permissions set up properly. For example, make sure the Add Everyone role does not have any permissions that a normal member wouldn't have. So go through your permissions and make sure that the administrator and all of the staff permissions are unticked. For starters, double check that normal members do not have permission to ping Add Everyone, Add Here, and all roles. This is detrimental to the safety of your server, and if this is not disabled, members will most likely spam ping roles. Another very important thing to remember is that your server needs to have very well outlined roles. So for example, make sure that the roles in your server are very clear and relatively easy to understand. For your server's roles, define them based on your server's theme, or at least that's what I would do personally. For example, a community server should have extensive roles on how to interact with other members in the server, and they should also describe what is allowed and what is not allowed. If you own, let's say, an advertising server, for example, have your advertising rules listed very clearly. This is important because if you do not have your rules listed very clearly, your moderators will not know what to do in certain situations where they need to delete a message or an advertisement or anything in your server, and it will be very confusing to the members as you can't really moderate a server if you don't have clearly listed rules. Having your roles clearly listed, such as AYS, can really help your server and its moderation a lot. Another thing to remember is that when you are creating roles for your server, always refer to Discord TOS. Now, as a server owner, it's good to learn the TOS and read through the community guidelines, as it's really good to know how Discord operates and the roles of Discord itself before you own a community. But in addition to that, you should also have some base roles, such as no harassment, no DM advertising, anything like that. It's pretty much up to you to decide, but you should have a good set of base roles before you make the roles that are unique to your server. Alright, moving on, I would like to talk about your staff team. For this, specifically the moderation team. To elaborate, you don't want to allow just anyone to be on your staff team. The moderation team is one of the most important teams in your server, and it really is a backbone to the security of your server. Your staff team represents your server, so it's important to have a trustworthy and mature staff team that has experience. Make sure to have some sort of application process when recruiting new staff members. Some servers use application bots while others use an online form maker such as Google Forms. At AYS, we personally use Google Forms for our staff applications, but this is completely up to you. It's your server, so you're free to completely make it unique in your own way. This is really important as it can vastly reduce the number of immature people in your staff team. When hiring moderators for AYS, I personally look for applications that are at the very least 4 to 5 sentences. This is really important in my opinion, as you don't want to allow someone with a low effort application on your team. Not only is it important to be careful when you're recruiting staff members, but it's also important once you get staff members to make sure your permissions in your server are set up properly. For example, you should have some sort of ranking system with your staff team. At AYS, we personally have a ranking system for the moderation team that goes as follows: Helper, Junior Moderator, and then Senior Moderator. Some servers call it Trial Staff, trial moderator, assistant, or anything similar to that. It's completely up to you what you want to name it, as it's your server and it should be unique and you can be creative in your own way. I'm just giving you examples of how to keep your staff team safe in your server. But like I said, it's up to you to decide if you want to implement these changes or how you want to do it. You should make sure that your trial staff members do not have any unnecessary permissions. It should be the very first rank in your staff team, and they should only have the permissions they need. Usually, trial staff members should really only have permission to manage messages and maybe mute people in voice channels. That's really it, as you really want to keep your server safe and don't want to take any chances of any raids or anything bad happening. For your moderators, which are, we're talking like a mid-level rank in your server, just a regular moderator, you'd usually want to give them permissions to ban, kick, warn, and mute. As a general rule, it's good to remember that you should only give the permissions you need. So for example, you don't want to give a moderator, manage server, or administrator anything they don't need. You can give whatever permissions pretty much you want to your management members, as those are usually the most trusted staff members in your team, but again, that's up to you. Generally, just you need to be careful with what permissions you give your staff members, as they can be used to hurt your server. Alright, I'd like to talk a little bit about what permissions are safe for your staff team and what permissions you should give to certain ranks. Now getting started, a trial moderator, like I said earlier, should really only have permissions to manage messages and maybe mute people in VC. The next rank up from that, which would be junior moderator in AYS, would only need to have warn and mute. Those are the only perms they have in AYS, and that is what we would generally recommend to most people. A senior moderator, which is the highest rank of moderators in AYS, would have permission to ban, kick, warn, mute, purge messages, and lock channels. Now for locking channels, that's okay to give to your trusted ranks, so like the higher up moderators, but it's not really something you want to give to your lower ranks, as it can be abused and it can lead to people locking the wrong channels or locking channels just because they feel like it. For purging, it is basically a mass delete command, and that is okay again to give to your trusted ranks, but it can also be used maliciously, as they can basically delete a bunch of messages at one time in a certain channel. So be careful with those. Just something I'd like to note here, and this is honestly one of my biggest pet peeves. I see a lot of servers giving their PMs or partnership team members really unnecessary permissions. And by that, I mean I see a lot of PMs that have mention everyone and add roles, and those permissions are really not necessary for your partnership team members. And you can pretty much replace all of that with a bot. Like for example with Dino, you can make a command in the custom command section that makes a role mentionable. So if you have a partnership ping, we don't personally at AYS, but if you do, you can make a command in Dino to make the role mentionable. For assigning roles, let's say you have a partner role in your server, you can also make a custom command with Dino that will allow the partnership team member to assign the role to the member. You can set up permissions and everything with Dino so only certain people can do it, and that is really what we'd recommend instead of giving your staff members unnecessary permissions that could be used to harm your server. Alright, the next thing I would like to talk about are raids. Now you may or you may not have heard of a raid before. Most people that have been on Discord for a while have. But if you haven't, I'll go ahead and explain it. A raid is basically where multiple people join your server and spam unwanted content. Now this content can be anything from NSFW to curse words. It can be content that's targeting a specific user, or it can just be targeting the server in general. Some raids have a motive, most do, but others are just people just wanting attention, I guess. The different types of raids, there's many different types. I would say the most popular is a group raid where like 10 people join your server and spam a bunch of things at once. I would say the second most popular, and I've seen this happen quite a few times, is a self-bot raid where people program a bunch of self-bots, usually about 20 to 40, and they join your server and usually only spam in one channel. but this spam can be pretty much anything, like I said earlier, from targeting a specific user or just general spam, self-promotion, anything. The easiest way to handle raids are by locking a channel if it's in that channel, or locking the server if it's a raid group and they are spamming in every channel on the server. Now, you also have to remember that you don't really want to lock your server unless it comes down to it. Locking the server basically makes it so nobody can type in it. So that's really a last resort. Raids typically don't happen that often if your server is set up well. There's really no way to completely prevent raids, but there are actions you can take to prevent them, which we've talked about in this video. So if you have a secure server and everything is set up properly, you have bots that can automatically detect raids such as Vortex, and I believe Dino has a raid mode that can detect spam, then your server should be fine and raids really aren't anything to worry about. If you have a good moderation team that has been trained to handle raids, then your server should be relatively safe. The very last thing I'd like to talk about today are what bots you should invite to your server. So getting started, we have Dino. I would say my top 3 picks for the best moderation bots would be Dino, Vortex, and Audager. If you head to dino.gg, you can go to the command section and you can view a full list of all of Dino's features and commands. If we click on the moderator button, you can see a full list of Dino's moderation commands, and you can see it has quite a few moderation commands. I would say it's one of my favorite moderation bots because it has really good auto mod features as well as locking features, but unfortunately the uptime is pretty bad on it. With Dino, even with premium, you can expect at least 20 to 30 minutes of downtime every day. Moving on, we also have Vortex, which is actually an open source bot. You can read a little about it on the GitHub page, but yeah, it's a pretty good general purpose moderation bot. I would say it lacks a few features for moderation, but it is our main auto mod bot, and it has decent logging as well. I would not pick it as my favorite moderation bot, but the reason we use it for our auto mod is because it is up almost all the time. After that, we also have Audager, which is a pretty good bot as well. I'm on the page right now, and it looks like they are doing service on their website, but I'll go ahead and explain it to you a little bit. Has anti-spam, anti-advertisement, moderation, verification, and poll/voting features. It's a really good multi-purpose bot. It has pretty good moderation and auto mod. I'm not particularly fond of the strike system, but it's a pretty good general purpose bot. Alright, I believe that will be it from me for now. In this video, we have discussed how to keep your server safe, how to set up some of the most popular Discord moderation bots, how to stop and prevent raids, as well as how to keep a secure staff team in your server. Like noted in the beginning of this video, if you have any questions, feel free to comment below and we'll be glad to respond. Now back to BFF.
Thank you so much to John for taking time to make that amazing tutorial for us. We hope that you liked the video, subscribe to the channel, consider subscribing to our Patreon down below, and join all our Discord servers. All the links will be in the description. Thank you, and come back next week for 1 or maybe even 2 new videos. Thank you, goodbye.